how do we create this, right?
So yeah, the $1 million question, of course, is what is executive functioning, first of all? And then secondly, how is it related to learning and play in our infants and toddlers? Like you said, let's peel back the layers.
Right, so executive functioning, the Webster definition, is that it focuses on a brain operation system, that cognitive skills, and I'm reading off my notes because I can never get it right. We need to control, regulate our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, and face a conflict or distraction. Mm-hmm. So the best way I can describe it is, I'm thinking in classroom terms because I'm a teacher, but the best way I can describe it is like my toddler, right? This morning is a great example. She wanted these grapes. These grapes are huge. I know I have to cut them. I did not preface anything. I just took them from her, right? And just started cutting them. And what did she do? Oh my God, just sounds of you, Mom. How dare you take these grapes from me? I'm just going to throw myself on the floor. Because that's the only way I feel like I can get my point across, right? So she's 21 months yesterday, and so she, cognitive skill-wise, she's like, I can't control this, right? And we always think about these young guys have these big emotions, and we want to be there for them, but that's basically the basis of this works for littles.
Right.
How to be there, how to help them conflict resolve and feel these big emotions without always feeling like the world is falling apart.
Right. And what you described, of course, is cognitive development, right? Because executive functioning does fall within that domain of development, that area of development. But of course, we know it is also highly interrelated and correlated to social and emotional development. And of course, as we talk about all the time on Strength in Words, the first 3 years especially of an infant or toddler's life, it's holistic learning, guys. All of those areas of development are completely interrelated. So let's break it down even more just so that people have sort of a clear understanding. One thing that really helped me when I was in grad school learning about, what is executive functioning was my professor explained it as essentially it's all of the skills that you would need to function as an executive, right? Those things like, can you name a few of the kinds of skills?
So some of the skills are follow directions, control your impulses, your ability to focus, your ability to be patient, your ability to take turns, right? Sound familiar?
Right. There's all the things that toddlers struggle with.
Exactly. Make judgments and project managing.
Yes.
Getting to one step to another, transitions.
Oh, God. We can all relate, right? That this is clearly a foundational skill, right?
So, and it's all there, right? So it's crazy. Like we're asking these little beings to be like, get it together, because I needed to get it together. But that's basically, if you're thinking like executive, right? They'll be able to make decisions and they'll be able to say yes and no. I feel like those WH questions, right? Mm-hmm. Not even H questions, not necessarily going to tell how questions, not even why questions, just like, what do you want to eat? Mm-hmm. Do you want this or do you want that? Those are still, you'd be surprised. It's depending on what age. Some kids can't answer that, right? And that's important. They have to be able to answer those questions. The ability to be patient, to wait your turn, actually has a title, self-control. Back in the 1972, Stanford University did that experiment. I don't know if you read the experiment in grad school. You probably did. In which the marshmallows, they put in front of 3 and 4 years old, and they told them they had to sit there 15 minutes, and that if they ate the marshmallow, then that was it. But then if they waited 15 minutes, they would get a second marshmallow. Yes. First of all, the fact that you had a marshmallow there, I think I would have failed. I don't know about you.
You're incentivized by marshmallows, huh, Renee?
I was like, oh man, they found the study over decades that the kids who weren't able to delay gratification, right? We live in such an instant gratification world that they had higher issues of like problem of behavior and learning in school. And then the kids who waited had like higher SAT scores and all those positive things.
And what age, remind us again, what age did they do that experiment with?
3 to 5-year-olds.
3 to 5-year-olds.
So that preschool age,
Right. So some kids can be expected to have some sort of executive functioning and self-regulation skills within that age range, and some struggle with it, which of course alludes to the fact that obviously with toddlers, and older infants, of course,
Yeah.
we're gonna find that this is a tough thing to manage. Okay. Yeah.
Definitely.
How are these skills related to learning and play?
So I think oftentimes we think I tie it to language with these toddlers, right? And to be able to help simplify their language in their head because they're learning to self-regulate and control and try to process and understand it. So I like when, I think it was the happiest toddler kind of said, like, speak to your toddler like a caveman. And he said, state the obvious, like, so I know it feels, and oftentimes when you talk to a toddler who's angry, right, they're not listening to you. They have shut down and stopped listening to you. So I often like sit with my daughter and I'll sit there and I'll just say, I know this is tough and I feel angry. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And then later on, I'll have a conversation with her where I said, remember when you were angry about X, Y, and Z? And she'll look at me and go, And it seems simple, but it sets up she actually started these big emotions at 13 months. And I remember she turned exactly 13 months and threw herself on the floor. And I was like, what? This is happening to me? And I remember going, okay, this can affect your play skills, right? Because how are you going to socialize? How are you going to get to parallel play if you're sitting there frustrated about taking something away from you? So I started that language just processing, not outwardly, but inwardly. I can see that she's starting to internalize that information and go, okay. Or I'll say, like, she's an independent kid. She tends to be a Montessori type of kiddish. She wants to do everything herself, even more than a typical toddler, like a little more than I'm like expecting. And so I often say, like, you can do hard things because if she doesn't get it in the first try, she like drops it and runs away. So that can affect her in the long-term executive functioning wise because she doesn't have the patience and the tenacity to stay with a project.
Right.
So you can see how kind of like domino effects later on.
Right, because it's all connected to this sort of ability to have the patience, to problem solve, to work through something, to, like you said, impulse control, like I'm feeling mad, how do I deal with that, right? So I love how you said, and we'll get more into this in a little bit, but the idea that you were providing this sort of emotional language for her. You were acknowledging how she was feeling and then relating even how you were feeling. And when we do that, when we use emotional language with our kids, we are providing them the tools. So that's fantastic. And I can't wait to hear more about that, Renee. But for just a second, we're going to take a brief break to hear a word from our sponsor. And then we're going to hear a few tips and some resources from Renee about her favorite ways to make play sort of more purposeful and some additional resources that she recommends to families who are interested in seeking out resources about this topic.